Today, I want to talk to you guys about some specific changes that I've been able to work on and make in my own swing in terms of force application and really maximizing what I've built in the weight room and actually transferring that into my swing. And hopefully you'll be able to get something out of this and apply it to your own swing. So the first thing that I want to talk about, there's really three different things. First one would be posture. Second one would be really figuring out how to use the ground to my advantage, and I'll explain what that means later. And then third one would be really understanding the sequencing of energy from the ground up through the torso and all the way through the hands. So if you want to call that kinetic chain, whatever you want to call it, just getting a better understanding of that as a whole. So the first thing is posture. So essentially what posture is the angle between my back here and then my femur. So this is straight up. If I hinge from the hips, this is going to be a more bent over posture. And in athletics or sport, the position that we're always told to get into, because it's the most powerful, is one that's about right here. If you're going to do a vertical jump, you're automatically going to go right about there, because that's where you're able to produce the most power from, or the most force from. So I want to be able to use that in my swing so that I can transfer as much energy as possible up through the sequence and into the baseball. So what I used to do is start straight up, and then as I stride it out, I would never really get into that really hinged position. Instead, I'll just land upright and I'd have nothing to use in terms of my legs. And if we're trying to maximize your swing speed, maximize your exit velocity, we need to use everything that we have available in the tank. So what I've started to do is actually start in a more hinged posture. So right here, and then as I move out into landing, and this is the more important part, I'm able to maintain that hinged position so that when I get to landing, I'm in a very powerful position. And you can do this even if you do start straight up. If as you move out, you're able to hinge into landing, that's okay too. It's just that, and this goes into the second piece, but when we get into landing and when our feet are actually in contact with the ground, we want to be in a powerful position that we can create force from. And part of that, and something that I've been messing around with, is actually the weight distribution into the ground and trying to keep my heels and midfoot on the ground as long as possible. In the weight room, if you're, let's say, squatting off of two legs and reverse lunging, so one leg, you're going to be able to move more weight, or maybe not reverse lunge, but like a Bulgarian split squat where you're actually only using one leg. You're going to be able to move more weight when both feet are anchored into the ground so you can produce force from both legs. So in terms of taking that into the swing, if we're able to start here and then when we get into landing, still be anchored with both of our heels, you're going to feel way more connected with the ground. And something, a key that works for me pretty well, is just try to kind of feel my whole foot on the ground when I'm at this position, so I can really feel the ground and then be able to use that to my advantage. So if you have good posture, take that into landing. At landing, your heels are both relatively still on the ground. When you take your full swing, they're probably not going to be quite still on the ground, but that should be the feeling. We've now created maximum amount of force or energy into the ground. So now, and this is the third part, we're able to, or we should be able to take that energy that we've created and put into the ground and then transfer that up through the chain, ultimately into the bat and into the baseball. And I've understood this for a while, but I've really just figured out how to actually do it. So if we're here at landing, I'm going to want my backhand to be right around my back shoulder, and I also want this to be back behind me pretty much as far as possible. The deeper we can swing from, the more distance we're going to be able to, or be allowed to cover, to create momentum, velocity in our actual swing. So if I'm here at landing, what I'm actually going to do now, the kinetic chain starts from the ground up. So I want this to stay right here and my lower half to actually open. So as my lower half opens, hands are still staying around the back shoulder. They're just turning down, front elbow turning up to get in a good position to launch from. And what a lot of guys do when they try to make this move, and this is something that I really used to do, is you'd think you're staying here, but what you're actually doing is your front shoulder is leaking. You're not able to create that kind of maximum stretch across your torso. So if this is done correctly, and as it opens you're really staying here, you should be able to feel kind of a crunch on your backside through your oblique and lat. And you can think of this, and your front elbow works up. So your elbows, instead of, if I'm facing you, instead of them working around, we really want them to work up so that it can clear space as our lower half opens, so we can then get on plane under the baseball. So what I was saying was, if you think of it in terms of wringing out a rag or a towel, when you go to wring out that rag, you're moving in opposite directions, really creating a good stretch throughout that piece of cloth, so that when you release it, if it was springy, like say a rubber band, which our body actually is more like that, it's less like a towel, but as you wring it out, when you let it go, it's going to go in the opposite direction more quickly the more you stretch it or the more you wring it. So what we're actually trying to do when we get here is create as much of that wringing action as we can, so that we can then unleash all of that into the baseball. So to review, a couple different things. First is posture. It's really understanding that we're most athletic and able to produce more force from this position right here. So that's a good reason. Get in the weight room, get strong on the deadlift, and then actually use it when you get on the field. The second piece is, when you're there, try to feel as much connection with the ground as possible. Really try to feel your whole foot on the ground, both your front and back foot. And then from there, we're trying to keep this around our back shoulder as long as possible, and then deliver for maximum transfer of energy into the baseball.